Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC. Today we're doing a little bit of a tuning video on the Hobao Hyper VS2 nitro powered 1/8 scale race buggy, and just want to talk about some changes I made to get to drive a little bit better. It does not require a whole lot of money or anything like that. If you want to pick one of these up, definitely check out Scott FORTIN on Facebook. Probably the best place to get a Hobao vehicle in the US. He does have great prices actually, so pretty good place to pick one of these things up. Now, the Hobao Hyper VS2, if you've seen the review video, the area I felt like it was weakest was in the handling department. I felt like it didn't drive quite well. It's a really great basher 1/8 scale nitro buggy because it's super durable. It's got all 70-75 parts. Got a really powerful 0.30 engine, so tons of power, very durable. That obviously makes it a great basher. But in the handling department, I felt like it was a little bit weak, so I just want to cover what I did changes-wise. So first off, you can tell I'm running a white wing. That's just cosmetic, but I think it looks a lot better and looks a lot more like a Hobao to me than the black wing with all the bright stickers and stuff like that. It just makes it look a little bit better. Also switched out to a low C TLR XE air filter there. I just did not like the stock air filter. It was gigantic. It was like the size of a boat basically out there on the front. Also obscured all the linkages and stuff, made it a little bit more difficult to get to all those things. So I think the low C air filter, definitely a lot more of a standard air filter, easier to get replacement filters, all that kind of stuff, just makes it a little bit cleaned up as well. Now in terms of the vehicle, tires are one area that will definitely improve the vehicle quite a bit if you're running on dirt. These are the 6-packs by Duratrax. Not really the best tire, I think. They are a little bit edgy because they got these huge spikes here on the edges of the tires. Probably will want to trim these down or something. But yeah, they do provide more traction. Stock tires, they're okay, but yeah, obviously picking the right tire for your environment will help a lot. And then the vehicle itself, I did swap out the diff fluids. Front, I'm running 10K. Rear, I'm running 7K. I did not change the standard diff. That seemed about right. But front and rear, definitely a little bit thin in my opinion, especially for this much power. So running 10K, 7K will help a lot. Shock wise as well, I do feel like the shocks actually have too much pack. And what I mean by pack is it's almost like, you know, if you took your hand and you smacked like a bathtub full of water or a swimming pool like that, it just has that instantaneous slap and does not allow this, especially to nice and smoothly absorb the energy. It just kind of stops because they're, you know, it's kind of a Hobao thing, but they tend to not have enough piston holes or big enough holes. So definitely I recommend lowering the shock fluid on that. You could also drill out the pistons if you want. I didn't go that far, but yeah, out of the box it comes with 700 CST in the front, 500 CST in the rear. I'm dropping it down 100 CST, so I'm running 600 in the front and about 400 in the rear. I'll put the equivalent shock fluids in weight. It depends on the brand you buy, but yeah, I would definitely run more in the 600, 400 range. It makes it a little bit more compliant. Out of the box, you'll find that it just kind of stops and doesn't absorb the energy at all. It just kind of smacks the ground. This just makes it a little bit more compliant. Shock spring wise, they are quite stiff as well. I don't think anybody makes a 17mm shock spring that will fit this, so I'm just running the shock springs. But I highly recommend you do not go up in spring rate. I see some people out there, you know, thinking about getting the orange springs. I would not do that. I do have the orange springs. They are even stiffer, and that's not the direction you want to go. Actually, they're already a little bit too stiff out of the box. Now, in terms of setup changes, I also lengthened the wheelbase here. I moved the spacer on the rear hub all the way to the front of the hub, so the wheel is basically skewed all the way back as much as possible. Vehicle is pretty rear weight biased. It's got a massive engine here in the back. It is a little bit further back than most of modern buggies, and what it does is kind of make it drive more like a pendulum. You'll notice out of the box, the way it drives is basically the front end will kind of understeer, and then once it bites, the rear end kind of like swings around and it kind of hooks really fast. And that's something that you'll want to try to avoid or diminish on this vehicle, because that's just kind of the stock steering characteristic. It does not drive particularly well that way. Much harder to drive because you have to kind of catch the vehicle. You kind of have to feather the throttle all the time to make sure you're not oversteering on the rear end. So lengthening wheelbase makes it a little bit more balanced. Front to rear does make it a little bit more stable, less likely to hook. Now the other area I did make a change, it was to go and lower the rear roll center. So the back end is actually a little bit too stiff. It does not roll quite enough. That's partly due to the stiff springs, but it just doesn't transfer weight or transfer load nice and smoothly over to the other side. It tends to just kind of lock up and then slide rather than nice and transition. And so what I did was actually run the rear camber links here on the bottom hole out here on the hubs. rather than the top hole. So out of the box, it does run the top holes. Move it to the bottom. It'll just make it a little bit easier on the rear end when it starts to kind of slide around. It does it a little bit more in a smooth transition, and then just makes it easier to drive out of the box. And the next area I changed was basically to move all the spacers here on the front end all the way to the back of the arm. The stock vehicle is kind of laid down quite a bit on the front hubs, much more than I think it should be. Standing it up a little bit makes it a little bit more direct, a little bit more linear. It doesn't quite bite quite as hard on the front end when it actually does dig in. So it makes it just a little bit more direct steering, a little bit more linear as well, and not when you're biting in on the front end, spinning it out as much. Yeah, those are the changes I made. I think that's about it in terms of setup wise. Try these out if you're having any issues with the vehicle driving. I did try different sway bars. That did not help, so I think the stock sway bar is totally fine, but I think you'll find the car a little bit easier to drive. So I'll share some running footage now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.